define a few terms because this is a challenge, right? We have to define terms. So a spectator. Spectator is everyone other than the student participants, the judge, the jury, and the administrator. Spectators must refrain from communicating with the students. That means talking, cheering, signaling, and that is throughout both rounds. So even during the break, you can't, try not to make any I know everyone's going to be excited, you're going to be so proud of them, but try to refrain until after the second round. Even former students, sometimes they know the rules and they just try to be mindful during the trial. Only the two designated proctors, which I've met one. I don't know who's our other proctor. These are the ones that can communicate with the children and myself. In between, during the break. So there's no discussion of the cases allowed outside the courtroom until the full presentation is over. So thank you, jurors, and to our judge for participating today to help bring these challenging students to the culmination of the year. For this mock trial, Katy Central, sorry, I'm from Pearland, so I'm still learning those campuses. Pearland will serve as prosecution, and Cinco Ranch will be the defense. So at this time, I'm going to inform the judge that we're ready, and when I signal the bailiff, the trial will begin. All right. We're excited to see this.
All rise. The 248th County Court of Philadelphia is now in session. The Honorable Judge Tim Taft is now presiding.
Please be seated. We will now hear the case of Commonwealth versus Zilius. Are the parties ready to proceed? Prosecution,
Yes, Your Honor.
are you ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Before we begin, I'd like for counsel to please identify yourselves. So starting with the prosecution, if you would each introduce yourselves for the court's benefit, please.
My name is Rebecca Clayton. I will be performing the opening statement and the direct examination of Reese Denver. May my co-counsel introduce themselves?
Yes, please.
Hello, Your Honor. My name is Emma Brown, and I will be doing the direct examination of Emerson Denver.
Okay, please remember to speak up. I have hearing aids, so I need all the help I can get, okay?
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Allie Richmond, and I will be performing the cross-examination of Reese Denver and the direct examination of London Packard.
Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Richard Bowman, and I will be performing the cross-exam of Tatum Zilius.
Your Honor, my name is Carly Haston. I will be making the opening statement and the direct examination of Reese Denver. May my co-counsel introduce themselves?
Please.
Your Honor, my name is Emma Portilla, and I will be direct examining London Packard. And cross-examining London Packard and direct examining Tatum Zilius.
Your Honor, my name is Linda Jungla, and I will be making the opening statements and cross-examining Mike.
Your Honor, my name is Jonah Marshbach. I will be making the closing argument, and I am cross-examining Emerson.
Okay. At this time, in the reckless homicide case of Commonwealth versus Zilius, will the defendant please stand? Ms. Zilius, how do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
Thank you. You may be seated. We will now hear the opening statements. First, from the prosecution. Please, if you would, use the microphone here so that everyone can hear.
Yes. May it please the court, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you will hear a most compelling compilation of facts, the account of sworn witnesses, physical evidence, and the arguments of expert attorneys, all of which will piece together to depict the rampage of a man motivated by greed, a fiery tailspin that brought everyone who dared to go near it to ruin. You'll hear of a person who brought their own dream crashing down around them, both figuratively and literally. The issue at hand is that the fallout of this mayhem cost more than the defendant's time, hope, and money. It cost the lives of Artie Dent and Grace Hopper. Today, we are gathered here to determine whether the defendant, Tatum Zilius, is guilty of 2 counts of murder in the 3rd degree. My name is Rebecca Clayton. I, along with my co-counsel Emma Brown, Richard Bohan, and Ali Merchant, represent the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the prosecution in today's case. After you hear the facts of this matter, as well as the arguments of both sides, we believe that you will find that the responsibility for the collapse of the Crane Fight Phil, which killed Grace Hopper and Artie Dent, lies with the defendant, Tatum Zilius. Now, when you hear murder, your mind will probably jump to intent to kill. But the matter with which we are concerned today hinges not on intent to kill, or even to injure, but on whether the defendant had malice. The legal definition of malice is, quote, a wickedness of disposition, hardness of heart, and a mind regardless of social duty, although a particular person may not have been intended to be injured, end quote. Malice may be found where the defendant consciously disregarded an unjustified and extremely high risk that his action might cause serious bodily injury. In the simplest terms, what you will be deciding is whether the defendant's actions constitute a carelessness on the level of dangerous recklessness, and whether we have proved this to you beyond a reasonable doubt. With all that out of the way, let us now move on to exactly what happened in an outline of the evidence you will hear today. You will come to learn that the defendant, Tatum Zilius, was building a modern housing system at Franklin's Trench in Philadelphia. To complete the exterior of the structure, 2 massive concave roofing panels needed to be lifted to the top of the structure. The reason that the defendant ordered these specific overweight panels, you will learn, is that he could get the best environmental rating for the building because of the large financial incentive built into her contract. The evidence will show that the defendant ordered these lifts knowing that the load was over the crane's maximum engineering limit, and the wind being over the crane's maximum wind tolerance, and with the knowledge that a squatter who wanted to ruin the site had been seen near the crane that very morning. The prosecution will be calling 2 witnesses to the stand. The construction site's supervisor, Emerson Turnkin, and one of the residents of Franklin's Trench, Len Packard. And the defense will be calling to the stand 3 witnesses: a reporter who is researching the site, Reese Dentner, the operator of Crane Fight and Fill, Micah Stratton, and the site manager, the defendant himself. Through the sworn testimony of these witnesses and the exhibits presented, you will hear the story of how, at the site of Franklin's Trench, the defendant specifically hired workers who shared his own mindset of fast means good, fast means profit. And that the defendant is quoted as saying, I don't care if people get hurt. We can pay for that. We can pay for anything but time. The evidence from multiple witnesses and the report of an expert who conducted an investigation will show that the defendant was responsible for being reckless with safety on the job site, causing widespread injuries. And the evidence will show that it was the defendant who made the decision to lift the roofing panels despite knowing that they were too heavy for the crane. In this trial, you will come to realize that the deaths of Grace Hopper and Artie Dent were no accident. They were the inevitable result of the defendant's careless actions that show his hard-hearted disregard for human safety. We anticipate that the defense will try to point the blame on other people, such as the crane operator, Micah Stratton. But listen carefully, and you will hear that when the defendant asked Stratton the critical question of whether the crane could safely handle the lifts, Stratton told the defendant yes, but only if the lifts happened before the winds picked up. The defendant was the one with this key knowledge, and therefore the one with the obligation to constantly monitor the wind speed. We also anticipate that the defense will try to place the blame on the deceased Artie Dent. While it is true that Artie did not want to lose his home and wanted to stop the obstruction, the defendant knew this, and yet he failed to secure the site and ordered the lifts despite knowing that he was on the loose at the site. You will learn that the defendant took authority over the site out of the hands of the site supervisor, Emerson Turkin, and that the defendant seized control of the lift from the possession of the safety operator and crane operator, usurping their authority all so that she could maximize her profit. The defendant's methods of managing the site at Franklin's Trench reached an egregious level of recklessness. The defendant's complete disregard for human safety is clear, and it cannot be tolerated. And so, after you hear the testimony and see all of the evidence, the prosecution will ask you to render the verdict that the evidence supports and that justice demands, to declare the defendant guilty of 2 counts of murder in the 3rd degree. Thank you.
Counsel, we'll hear now from the defense.
Your Honor, my name is Carly Haston, and I will be making the opening remarks in this case. Allow me to introduce my co-counsel, Lily Jungla, Emma Portilla, and Jonah Morsbaugh. I would also like to introduce our witnesses, Ms. Tatum Zilius, Mr. Micah Stratton, and Ms. Doris Denton. This case is about Ms. Tatum Zilius, a visionary business owner who is being wrongly accused of 3rd-degree murder. Ms. Zilius had the dream of giving families what she did not have growing up, a safe home. She founded her company, Project C, with the goal of making the world a better place. Her plan was to build eco-friendly public housing right in the middle of Philadelphia, more specifically, a place called Franklin's Trench. On August 31st, 2012, while lifting roof panels, the crane being used collapsed, and unfortunately, a tragic accident occurred. Ms. Zilius was on site at the time and is now being blamed for this misfortune. Although the prosecution will try to convince you that Ms. Zilius showed malice, she asked multiple times if it was safe to lift, and got confirmation multiple times. This showed not only that she had permission to lift, but that she was not reckless in making this important decision. Our first witness will be Mr. Reese Dentner. Reese is a reporter who loves the truth. He will tell us about Mr. Artie Dent, a squatter who loved Franklin's Trench. Mr. Dentner will share how Mr. Dent wanted to sabotage the crane and how much he sabotaged the work site. He will also share who he heard allowed the lift to proceed. Our second witness will be Mr. Micah Stratton. Micah is an experienced crane operator who was hired by Ms. Tatum Zilius. Mr. Stratton knows this crane extremely well, and he will share about how confident he was that his crane could do the job. He will also share how things went on August 31st, and he will tell us who he saw give him the green flag. Our third witness will be the defendant, the one and only Ms. Tatum Zilius. Ms. Zilius is the owner of Project C, and she will share about her background and how she has compassion on those who are without a home. She will also share how her worksite was run and why she believed the lift to be safe, including the fact that she had permission to lift. Ms. Zilius is an invested company owner and a thoughtful home builder, but not a murderer. This could have happened to anyone who was in Ms. Zilius' position. We will prove that she is being wrongly accused of 3rd-degree murder, and we will refute the prosecution's elements of proof. We are asking that the court find Ms. Tatum Zilius not guilty. She regrets what happened and she did not mean to hurt anyone. It is not right to take away an innocent person's freedom for an accident they did not cause. That is all, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. Counsel. We'll now proceed to hear the prosecution's case. Call your first witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to call Emerson How old are you?
I'm 53 years old.
What association did you have with Franklin's Trench?
I was the site supervisor for Project Z.
How did you get hired at Franklin's Trench?
I was hired when Zilius approached me in 2011 asking if I wanted to join the project, and I agreed.
What did you know about Zilius's reputation before Project Z?
He was known for being very rushed and had a speed means money kind of mindset.
How do you think Project Z has affected your reputation?
My reputation is ruined. I mean, I'll never be able to find work again after what happened on that site.
Okay, let's move to the issue of squatters. What were some things the squatters did to the site?
Well, they vandalized the site. Nothing major, just small things like graffiti or moving around tools.
What did Zilius do to prevent squatters poking around?
He put up a fence.
What was Zilius doing with the safety sweeps?
He often cut them and canceled them.
What did Zilius say to you on January 10, 2012 after talking about how pretty the site looked?
He said that we can pay for anything except for time, and that he does not care if we get hurt. Sheep.
When working on Project Z, what were some things that worried you?
The overall safety of the site was a big concern of mine, and also the squatters who had free access to the site very often.
What caused so many injuries on site?
The fact that Zilius often canceled safety sweeps, and just the overall rushed work.
What were conditions like while working with Zilius?
They were very stressful. I was often pushed, and nothing ever felt like it was enough.
What kind of warning did Zilius give you before opening a second shift?
None. She opened the shift without telling me.
Moving on to the left. When did you learn of the weight total for the roofing panels?
In April,
What was their weight compared to Fighting Phil's maximum load limit?
the roofing panels were 150 tons over Fighting Phil's max capacity.
What was Zilius's reply when he learned the panels went over the weight limit?
Well, Micah Stratton told me that she understood the risk, but wanted to proceed with the lifts anyway.
What kind of concern did Zilius show for the weather before the lift?
None.
How did you respond when Hurricane Isaac hit the Gulf Coast?
I was concerned, so I confronted Zilius and asked if he still wanted to proceed with the lifts, and he said yes. She said yes.
What was weather like August 31st?
There were fluttering rains and very strong winds.
Why did Zilius want the lifts done so bad?
To meet a deadline he had set in October, and to not scrap any progress that was made prior to the lifts.
What happened during the second lift before the crane collapsed?
The winds picked up, and there was a squatter that appeared on site near the crane.
Did Zilius take the green flag from Grace?
I think so, but it was hard to tell due to the weather on that day.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is leading the witness on a direct examination.
Sustained. Please rephrase the question, Counselor.
Hold on, I'm trying to think of which question I asked. Which one she's objecting to. Did Zilius happen to wave a green flag?
I think so.
Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is leading the witness.
Sustained. Please rephrase your question.
Was the flag ever taken from Grace?
I think so.
Objection, Your Honor.
Yeah.
Counsel is leading the witness.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Proceed, Counselor.
Yeah,
Ask your next question.
Yes. Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Can you identify this exhibit?
This is the final report from OCIS written by expert witness Quinn Baxter.
Your Honor, may I tender the exhibit to opposing counsel?
Yes, please. Will there be any objection
When you learned about the squatters, you had a meeting arranged with their self-proclaimed leader, correct?
Yes.
Leader, correct? But instead of fixing their problem, you made it worse by blowing up on them, did you not?
Yes.
Is it true that after this meeting, the squatters started vandalizing your site?
Yes.
Did you do anything to prevent the squatters from entering the work site?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Or,
Objection, Your Honor. That answer, the witness has no personal knowledge to that answer.
What says the prosecution? The objection is, the witness has no personal knowledge. Is there a response from the prosecution?
No response, Your Honor.
I'll sustain that.
okay,
We'll strike that, response from the record.
okay, so you just, wait, what was it? So did you do anything to prevent the squatters from entering the work site? So you just allowed random people to enter your active and dangerous construction site?
Yes.
If you still went as far as to say that it was the safest in the city,
Yes.
and in addition to that, that the problems on the site started when Zilius took over?
Yes.
And may I, approach the witness?
You may.
Can you identify Defense Exhibit 1?
This is the statement that I gave.
Okay.
Will there be any objection from the prosecution?
No, Your Honor.
Defense Exhibit 1 will be admitted into evidence.
Can you read could you read the sentence starting, Grace said she could not stop the lift on line 87?
Grace said that she could not stop the lift without Quinn Baxter's approval, and that she knew Quinn valued my opinion, but I knew I'd be fired on the spot if I tried to stop the lift, so I said that.
So despite your supposed belief that you thought that the lift was dangerous, you did not talk with Quinn Baxter to stop the lift?
Yes.
That'll be all, Your Honor.
Prosecution, call your next witness, please. You may stand.
Your Honor, I'd like to call London Packard to stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Please introduce yourself to the court. Hello, my name is London Packard. Where is Franklin's Trench located?
Franklin's Trench is located in the city of Brotherly Love, aka Philadelphia.
When did you stumble upon Franklin's Trench?
One sunshine-filled day in 1975.
How many squatters lived alongside you?
Well, overall, there was about 1,500 squatters, but the main group was 50.
Who was Artie?
Artie Dent was a mentally ill squatter who lived alongside me.
Who is Reese Dentner?
Reese Dentner is a reporter who is very fascinated in Project Z.
How did Reese help you?
Well, she tried to get me a meeting with Caden Zilius, but on the day of the meeting, I was stuck with the site manager, Emerson Chernkin.
What kind of injuries did you see on the site?
A lot of rolled ankles, smashed hands, bruised bodies. Was not very nice.
Was the second shift better or worse?
Oh, second shift was way worse. That's when Zilius ruled the night. I saw one guy step into a puddle of live wires and nearly get electrocuted.
Did Zilius do anything to prevent injuries?
I mean, he put up a fence.
What type of letter did you find on August 24th?
On August 24th, I found a letter in the trash addressing the fact that the lift was not approved. I thought this would buy us some time, but Zilius went with it anyways.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Can you identify this?
This is the license and inspection sheet.
What exhibit is that, counsel?
Exhibit number 2.
Would you like to tender it to opposing counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
The exhibit, counsel. Is that a true and correct copy of the same exhibit that the witness holds?
Yes, Your Honor.
Will there be any objection from the prosecution?
No, Your Honor.
Defense exhibit number 2 will be admitted into evidence. You may proceed, counsel.
Who is this letter addressed to?
Tatum Zilius, Emerson Turnkin, and Mike Strong.
Please read the first few sentences starting with the city.
The City of Philadelphia Department of License and Inspections is in receipt of your application for permission to conduct a construction lift above engineering limits. Although the application was well documented, additional information is required before we can reach a final agency determination of your request.
Ms. Packard, what does this tell us about the permission of the lift?
That the lift was not approved.
Great. Let's now talk about the big lift. What was the weather like the day of the lift?
On the day of the lift, the wind was howling like a dog. The rain was coming down hard. There was no way they could lift.
What happened during the first lift?
During the first lift, I saw as the panel reached up and swayed from left to right. I thought it was going to crash then.
Who waved the green flag to continue the second lift?
I saw Zilius take the green flag from Grace and wave it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Will there be any cross-examination?
Your Honor, my name is Emma Portia, and I will be cross-examining the factor. Now, Ms. Linden, you are a resident of Franklin's Trench, correct?
Yes.
And did you and the squatters have any legal rights to the trench?
No?
So you were just living there. It legally belonged to the government.
Yes.
Now, Ms. Linden, you had a friend, Mr. Artie Dent, correct?
Yes.
And you say, and I quote, he was the strangest resident at Franklin's Trench.
Yes.
He also was prescribed mental medicine, but he rarely took it, true?
Mm-hmm.
Now, Ms. London, in the summer of 2011, after Mr. Zilius moved the crane fighting fill-in, Mr. Dent began to tell the people of Franklin's Trench that he would bring Project Z, he would destroy it from the inside, correct?
Yes.
And from there, you met Mr. Reese Dentner, a reporter, and he was coming to you for wanting to write a story about your little community, correct?
Yes.
He was also able to get you to sit down with Tatum Zilius, which then turned into Emerson Turnkin due to difficult circumstances, correct?
Yes.
Now, Ms. London, at this meeting, you suggested to move Project Z, and Mr. Turnkin just blew up in your face without even hearing you out, correct?
I suppose.
Now, after that meeting, the people of Franklin's Trench were very unhappy about the situation, correct?
Yes.
Including yourself.
Yes.
And since Tatum Zilius legally bought the trench, from there, you and Artie Dent began to vandalize and move equipment, correct?
I suppose.
So the vandalism involved graffiti, moving equipment, and in the end, just putting every single worker on site in danger, correct?
Yes.
Now, Ms. Linden, you were on site on August 31st, correct?
Yes.
And you say when you got up that morning, Mr. Dent was nowhere to be found.
Correct.
And when the crane began to fall, you saw Mr. Dent in front of the crane, correct?
Yes.
And his hands were held up in either defiance or victoriously, correct?
Yes.
And later you found a letter addressed to Reese Dentner from Mr. Artie Dent, correct?
Yes,
It was a manifesto of sorts, correct?
yes,
And it involved a lot of ways to bring down the crane, and it also involved a wrench, correct?
yes,
Now, Ms. London, just because you lived at the trench, it gave you free right to vandalize and move equipment around?
yes,
It gave you, just because you lived there, it gave you free right to hurt other people by putting them in danger?
no,
So, no further questions, Your Honor.
You may stand down. Prosecution will call your next witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call Mr. Reese Dentner to the stand.
The prosecution hasn't addressed it yet, counsel.
I'm sorry, Your Honor.
Prosecution, do you have anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Does the prosecution at this time rest?
Yes, sir.
Now the defense may proceed.
Your Honor, I would now like to call Mr. Reese Dentner to the stand.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name for the court.
My name is Reese Dentner.
Mr. Dentner, what is your job?
I'm a reporter. I come for the afflicted, comfortable, and sell copy doing it.
I see.
There's a microphone.
What is your bachelor's degree in?
I have a bachelor's degree in English and Communications,
And what is your master's degree in?
journalism,
From what college?
Syracuse University.
I see. Mr. Dentner, when did you come to Philadelphia?
I came to Philadelphia in 2003
And why did you visit Zilius' sites?
because I needed the journalistic goal.
Interesting. Now, Mr. Dentner, could you tell us about Mr. Artie Dent?
Yes, Artie Dent was a squatter who lived in Franklin's Trench who was obsessed with resisting the loss of his home.
What is Operation Turtle?
Operation Turtle was Artie's way of standing up to Zilius, trying to slow down the site by usually tagging with chains or moving tools.
I see. A sabotage. Now, were there,
Counsel, no remarks, please. Just ask your questions.
okay, yes. Were there injuries on site?
Yes, mostly minor ones, and I saw 2 people fake injuries to get workers' comp, and Zilius paid them.
Does that microphone work? You may answer that again.
Oh, can you please repeat the question?
Were there injuries on site?
Yes, mostly minor injuries, and I saw 2 people fake injuries to get workers' comp, and Zilius still paid them.
I see. What is the name of your article?
The name of my article is Trench Warfare.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Could you please identify this incident? Could you please identify it?
Trench Warfare.
Which exhibit is that, counsel?
Commonwealth Exhibit, no, Defense Exhibit 2, 3.
Okay.
Now, Mr. Dentner. Oh,
Would you-
I'm sorry.
Was there, hold on one second, was there any objection from the
No, Your Honor.
prosecution? Okay, defendants number 3 will be admitted.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Mr. Dentner, according to your article, what did the mayor think about the lifts?
She said,
You may say, I don't know,
I don't
but
know.
it's your article.
Okay. So, Mr. Dentner, could you please page of your article, the last two sentences of the third page of the third paragraph on your article.
Then she said that she is confident that the lifts are safe. They will be approved this week.
Thank you. Mr. Dentner, when did you last see Mr. Artie Dent?
The day of the lift, August 31st, 2012.
And what was he doing?
I'm not completely sure, but it looked like he had his hands up like he was praying, looking at the crane.
I see. And from your point of view, Mr. Dentner, who let the lift proceed?
Grace Hopper.
Why do you think that?
Because I heard her say when the lift almost crashed, you proceed.
I see. And Mr. Dentner, after the catastrophe, who talked to you about the crane?
Artie Dent.
How did he do this?
London Packard gave me a sealed envelope.
And what was in it?
Artie's master plan.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness? Would you please identify this exhibit?
Master plan by manifesto by Artie Dent, July 4th, 2012.
Thank you. Your Honor, this is Defense Exhibit 4.
Will there be any objection from the prosecution?
No, Your Honor.
Defendant's exhibit number 4 will be admitted into evidence.
Thank you. Now, Mr. Dentner, according to the manifesto, how was Artie going to stop Project Z?
With his master plan, Project Turtle, Operation Turtle.
I see. And could you please read the last bulletin point on that?
The answer is simple. A trench coat, mortar blood that will forever stain this drain project. A spot that can never be washed out. A mark on what will always be home to the trenchers of Franklin.
Thank you. No further questions, Your Honor.
Will there be cross-examination from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor.
In January, Tatum said that she could pay for anything but time, and time was all that mattered.
Yes,
You learned from an OCIS employee that Zelius had many safety issues, correct?
yes,
Were there any injuries to the workers on the site?
yes, mostly minor ones.
Tatum said that they could pay for anything but time, so he paid for injuries?
Yes,
So the defendant did not care if people were hurt?
no,
Did you see Zelius treat injuries as minor problems?
yes,
Was there danger on the day of the lift?
yes, a lot.
Objection, Your Honor. Opinion?
What says the prosecution?
Your Honor, this is not opinion testimony. This is just what the witness saw.
I'll overrule the objection. You may answer.
Could you please repeat the question?
Was there danger on the day of the lift?
Yes,
On the day of the lift, you were shocked that a reasonable person would let the lift proceed, right?
yes,
Would you agree that Zelius is a cheapskate?
yes,
Objection, Your Honor. Opinion?
Could you repeat the question again?
Would you agree that Zelius is a cheapskate?
I'll sustain that objection. So we'll strike that answer from the record. You may proceed, counsel.
The first lift was lowered with much difficulty, wasn't it?
yes,
And that was before the wind picked up.
yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Witness may stand down. Defense, call you next.
Your Honor, the prosecution would like to call up our next witness, Micah Estrada.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Please state your name for the court.
Micah Estrada,
Mr. Estrada, where did you get your degree from?
Drexel University.
What is your
since I turned 16 years old.
What group have you been a proud member of for 25 years?
I've been a proud member of the International Union of Operating Engineers,
What is the maximum engineering load percentage set at?
85%.
Now, who are you certain gave you the green flag on the second lift?
Grace Hopper,
How long have you been working with Fight and Fill exclusively?
18 years.
What is the most important thing to the ELS?
Lives.
What was your one concern after Fight and Fill was erected?
Emerson Turkin had us lifting even though the squatters were present.
So you must know a ton when it comes to the construction and engineering.
Yes, ma'am.
Please tell me about Local 542.
From 2002, from 2006, I was a business manager for Local 542 when it came to its president.
Who founded ELS, Stratton Lift Systems?
My mother.
Where do you usually speak?
I usually speak at certification classes for crane operators.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Will there be cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Stratton.
Morning.
Your company erected Fight and Fill in late September of 2011, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that shortly after that, squatters were walking around on the job site?
Yes.
In fact, they were intentionally walking under the crane when it was bearing heavy loads, weren't they?
Yes.
And you met with the defendant to express your concerns about the dangers to the squatter, yes, didn't you?
I don't know.
All right then, moving ahead to January of 2012, that's when the defendant visited the job site, isn't it?
Yes.
And isn't it true that the defendant cut down on the time to do safety sweeps?
Yes.
And at that time, it was clear to you that it wasn't OCAS who had the reins on the site, wasn't it?
Yes.
And it was the defendant and Turnkin who were in control, weren't they?
Yes.
Fight and Fill had maximum limits, correct?
Yes.
And these maximum limits are specified in crane spec sheets, aren't they?
Yes.
And both you, and before the defendant and you signed the crane rental contract, the defendant asked you for the spec sheets on Fight and Fill and a smaller crane, didn't he?
Yes.
And you and the defendant both signed this rental agreement that had an attached copy of Fight and Fill's spec sheets, didn't you?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Could you identify this, please?
ELS 72750 Fight and Fill.
Counsel, what is the exhibit that you're looking at? Which exhibit is that? Is that Commonwealth number 2,
This is Commonwealth's exhibit number 3.
number 3?
May I tenure this to opposing counsel?
You may. Will there be any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Commonwealth number 3 will be admitted. You may proceed.
Mr. Stratton, do you recognize this document? Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
Could you please tell the court what it is?
It is Fight and Fill's spec sheet of weight limits and dust.
could you please tell us what the second page is?
Is the technical engineering tolerance in a fixed position.
Mr. Stratton, wasn't the maximum weight limit for the crane fight and fill listed as 2,750 tons?
Yes.
But didn't the panels you were lifting weigh 2,900 tons?
Yes, but the engineering is set at 85%.
But since these panels were overweight from the maximum engineering limit, didn't you need permission from the city to lift them?
Yes, and I sent Emerson Turkin right away to Sprite to the city.
But did you get this approval?
No, we didn't.
So, to be clear, Zilius ordered you to lift these overweight panels without permission from the city?
No.
Your Honor, I ask that this witness's witness statement be entered into evidence.
What exhibit will that be, Council?
Commonwealth number 4, Your Honor.
Will have to be identified by the witness first.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Do you recognize this document?
Yes.
What is it?
What is it?
It is my testimony.
May I finger this to Officer Kessler?
Will there be any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Commonwealth's number 4 will be admitted. You may proceed, Council.
So the defendant was on the site on the day of the lift, right?
Yes.
And did Zilius know that a squatter was on the job site?
Yes.
But Zilius still proceeded with the lift, didn't he?
Yes. But Emerson Turkin did not stop any of the squatters either.
And the defendant knew what the weather conditions were?
Yes, we all did.
And the defendant let the lifts proceed despite this adverse weather condition?
No, me, Grace, and Zilius all talked over the thing.
But you can't say with 100% certainty that it was Grace Hopper who gave you the green flag, can you?
I'm mostly certain that it was.
Objection, Your Honor, non-responsive answer.
What says the defense?
Objection, Your Honor, let's finish with this statement.
May I see the witness statement?
further questions.
Okay, you may stand down. Yes, call your next.
The next witness we'd like to bring up is Ms. Tatum Lewis. Your Honor.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
So, Ms. Tatum, now, I do have a few questions for you. Where did you grow up?
I grew up homeless without finding places to live for tons of time.
And Ms. Lewis, what is your education?
I went to college and high school and I have an MBA.
Now, Ms. Lewis, what was your passion, your goal for Project Z?
It was to give home to the homeless and to give them the safety that I never felt as a child.
I see. And who did you hire to make those really beautiful dreams come true?
I hired Emerson Turnkin.
I see. Now, Ms. Lewis, why did you trust Mr. Turnkin with these dreams?
He had a great reputation and I knew he could get things done quickly but with efficiency.
I see. Now, Ms. Lewis, this is a very big project. Out of curiosity, how are you funding Project Z?
Some of the money came from the government and some of it came from my pocket.
I see. Now, Ms. Lewis, what horrified you when you came to site January 2012?
I saw that the foundation had barely been laid. There was graffiti all over the site. We were 6 months into the project and already several months behind.
I see. Now, afterwards, why did you put up a fence surrounding Project Z?
To keep out the squatters.
I see. Now, Ms. Turnkin, I beg your pardon, Ms. Ilias. Emerson Turnkin said, and I quote, "You saying we can pay for people." What did you mean by that?
I meant that we could pay for minor injuries like toes falling on hard hats. I had no intent to hurt my workers.
I see. And what was the news you received in April about the panels you intended to lift with the crane fighting Phil?
I found out that each panel weighed 2,900 tons.
I see. Now, Ms. Ilias, what conspired between you and your fellow workers, Emerson Turnkin, Mike Estrayan, and Grace Hopper from the OCIS?
We held a meeting to ask questions about the lift.
And what was the question you asked?
I asked if it was safe to lift.
And what was the question you received?
I was told that it was.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
This would be evidence, I'd like to reference the prosecution evidence one.
Wait a minute. Defense number one is in evidence. Defense number one is in evidence. Is this a?
This is prosecution use.
Prosecution.
It's a prosecution, I'd like to reference.
Okay.
Prosecution evidence one.
Got it.
Will you please read
It's the OCIS.
the OCIS report?
Counsel, you don't have to tender that to opposing counsel. It is in evidence, so you may use it.
Now, Ms. Ilias, what, you received the Fight and Phil's technical engineering tolerance. What was the max wind capacity for miles per hour?
24,
And what was the max gust?
30.
Now, Your Honor, according to Quinn Baxter's OCS report, at the time of the fall, the winds were 10 to 17 miles per hour, while the wind gusted up to 28 miles per hour, which is all under the limit of the crane's wind capacity. Right. So, with that being said, no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, will there be cross-examination?
So, were there any OCIS violations?
I don't know.
May I answer? May I approach the witness?
You may. Commonwealth's number 1. It's in evidence. Here it is.
Oh.
Sorry, I was hiding it from you.
What exactly is this?
It's a final OCIS report.
So, were there any OCI violations?
Yes.
Did you take concerns from Micah and Grace seriously?
Can you please repeat the question?
Did you take concerns from Micah seriously?
No.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
Will you identify this?
This is my statement.
Which, is that Commonwealth's number 5, counsel?
Yes.
Was there any objection? That's
No, Your Honor.
Okay, that will be admitted. Commonwealth number 5.
Okay, can you please read line 75?
Micah assured us that he could pull it off as long as we got it done by the time the winds really kicked up.
Yes, no? So, did you listen to what he said?
Yes.
Okay. And then, were you also aware that the roofing panels were overweight?
Yes.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Can you identify this?
This is the memorandum of understanding.
Which exhibit is that, counsel?
Commonwealth number 6.
Will there be any objection?
No, Your Honor.
That will be admitted. Commonwealth number 6.
Can you please read 5A?
Upon completion of all structural work, including all,
Can you read it like?
would you like me to?
Yes, please.
For its work in developing the Franklin's Trench property, Project Z will be paid as follows. Upon completion of all structural work, including all roofing.
Okay, can you read the subsections?
On or before December 31st, 2011, $30 million. On or before October 31st, 2012, $25 million. On or after November 1st, 2012, $15 million.
Okay. So you're concerned about meeting deadlines for the construction before August 31st, right?
Yes.
You had a strong financial incentive to finish the project before November 1st, 2012, right?
Yes.
And you had your sights set on the October 31st deadline with a vengeance, didn't you?
Yes.
And you're rushing because of vengeance because $10 million was at stake, right?
Yes.
after you visited the site and discovered it was behind schedule, you ordered a second shift to start and later even a third, correct?
Yes.
And you cut the daily safety sweep to only 20 minutes? And even though you knew that squatters had access to the site?
Yes.
You had a saying, fast means good, fast means money, right?
Yes.
And you're angry about how things are going on site, correct?
Yes.
Do you think Emerson, who had 30 years of experience on sites, was overkill with safety?
Yes.
And you also added on 2 more safety sweeps, 2 more shifts, making a total of 3, while there is only 1 site supervisor, Emerson Turnpike, correct?
Yes.
In April, you got the news that terrified you. That was the immense weight of the roofing panels, correct?
Yes.
And these panels weighed 2,900 tons each, didn't they?
Yes.
And you're terrified because you knew that this was well over the contractual engineering limit of fine fill, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you wanted these heavier panels because they had newer, better solar technology.
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to refer back to the memorandum of understanding. Okay. According to the memorandum between you and the city and the Department of Housing and Urban Development, Project Z will get paid more money per family every month for a low level of environmental impact rated the Franklin Trench Building dock, correct?
Yes.
The memorandum of understanding, will you please read aloud section 3C, subsection 3 of the memorandum?
If the Franklin Trench development shall be deemed a LEED Platinum certified building, documenting is extremely low environmental impact. Project Z shall receive an additional incentive payment not to exceed $100 per family per month to operate the Franklin Trench development.
Okay, these roofing panels will help you get the LEED Platinum certification and will let you earn much more money per family, correct?
Yes.
The roofing panels that you used to help you were also considerably heavier than the original design, weren't they?
Yes.
Okay, may I approach the witness? You may. Okay, I'll refer back to Commonwealth number 3.
Fighting Fields inspection.
Yes. Okay, this is the fine fill engineering tolerance sheet, correct?
Yes.
Will you please read number 4 on the right side of the page?
Maximum engineering wind gust lift capacity was calculated using flat surfaces in a lift configuration approved by the Association of Crane and Rigging Professionals and the American Society of Safety Engineers. Maximum wind tolerances for convex or concave objects may be lower.
Okay, so let's discuss the end of August now. So on August 30th, Micah Stratton told you that he could pull off the lifts only if they're done before the wind's kicked up, didn't he?
Yes?
But these lifts happened while the rain was pouring and it was windy, right?
Yes.
And you knew full well that the rain and wind would hamper the crane's ability, right?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach the witness?
You may.
Can you please identify this?
This is the artistic rendering of Franklin Trench.
This is Commonwealth number 6, I believe.
That's a memorandum?
This artistic rendering of Franklin's Trench.
Oh, I think that's gonna be Commonwealth number 7. Did you tender it? Did you tender it to the board council? Is there any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, that will be admitted.
So this is what Franklin's Trench was meant to look like, right?
Yes.
I see in this picture the roof and panels are concave, right?
Yes.
But you also knew that their wind tolerance would be lower for concave objects, is that right?
Yes.
So you still lifted even when it was overweight with lower wind tolerances and heavy rain and without approval from the city?
Yes.
And now you're here, is that right?
Can you please repeat the question?
Now you're here, is that right?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Does the defense rest at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll now hear closing arguments. The defense will proceed first.
May it please this court, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. My client, Tatum Zilius, had the vision of building cheap and affordable housing for the homeless and giving them a sense of safety, feeling that she rarely felt as a child. However, due to these unfortunate and unforeseeable events, this dream might never be fulfilled. Throughout the trial, the defense has made it clear that Tatum Zilius is not guilty of murder in the third degree. We have shown that there is a lack of burden of proof, and that it is likely that Artie Dent, the mentally deranged squatter, tampered with the crane during a second lift, leading to the fall of Fighting Phil. Ms. Zilius is not guilty of third degree murder because to prove third degree murder, you have to show that there is a manifestation of malice. Commonwealth v. Cottom tells us that malice, among other things, is the recklessness of consequence in a mind, regardless of social duty. Ms. Zilius did not manifest either because she checked with Micah Stratton multiple times to ensure the crane was safe and to lift despite the panels being overweight. Mr. Stratton, the expert witness, said that the crane could handle the lift despite high winds and heavier than expected roofing panels. To Zilius, there wasn't an unjustifiable amount of danger to consciously disregard because she was assured there was minimal risk. The prosecution might continue to argue this point about not having permission from the city or ELS, but who would you trust to determine if the crane was safe to lift? The man who worked exclusively with Fighting Phil for 18 years, or a man, for all we know, who has never seen Fighting Phil. We've also heard about the mentally deranged squatter who, in the last moments of his life, was seen holding his hands in the air in triumph. Artie Dent, called the most interesting resident of Franklin's Trench, had planned from the beginning to stop Project Z. The first approach he called Project Turtle. He planned to go onto the worksite and move tools and graffiti. The idea was to slow down Project Z. This worked for the first 6 months when Emerson was the only one taking charge, but when Ms. Zilius showed up and took over, Project Z started moving along quickly. Bruce Dinner tells us about how before the crane incident, Artie Dent wrote a manifesto saying that he would destroy Project Z, and that the best way to do that would to be as a martyr. We also heard Micah Stratton say that he had the lift under control, and then suddenly there was a low hydraulic fluid light. Later, when he learned about Artie and the missing fire axe, he says that Artie had cut the hydraulics at the wrong time, could have caused the crane to tip. Members of the jury, please keep in mind that Tatum Zilius stands before you innocent until proven guilty, and that it is not the defense's job to prove innocence, but for prosecution to prove guilt. And that to prove guilt, you should keep the burden of proof in mind. The legal standard to be convicted of third-degree murder is any killing with malice that is not the first or second degree. Malice in this court of law may be found where the defendant consciously disregarded an unjustified and extremely high risk, and her actions might cause serious bodily injury. That's from Commonwealth v. Cottom. And the other way, in this way, Tatum Zilius is not guilty because she was not aware of the danger, as she was assured many times that the lift was safe. The deaths of Artie Dent and Grace Hopper are not the fault of Tatum Zilius, as there was no danger in the lifts. The crane falling over was an unfortunate and unpredictable event caused by Artie Dent. Thank you for your attention.
We'll hear from the prosecution.
stop this from happening again and give closure to the family members of the two victims that have tragically passed. Cases of extreme negligence are not rare. In cases such as Commonwealth versus Kellum and Commonwealth versus Schofield, both defendants show malice. Whether it be by leaving a minor displaying malnutrition, dehydrated, hypothermic, unattended, or by driving under the influence despite being informed he was too young to drive, a pattern of negligence exhibits malice. There are some things both parties acknowledge. The OCIS report listing multiple safety violations and the fact 2 lives were lost on the construction site because of these safety violations. Emerson Turnkin, the safety manager, stated that the defendant, Tatum Zilius, did in fact cut safety sweeps and respond to the squatters by ignoring them. Tatum Zilius paying for every injury out of his own pocket does not mean that the pattern of neglect towards safety violations will end. In fact, it has been demonstrated that financial penalty had not stopped Zilius' pattern of neglect, the lives could be at risk. Zilius was aware of the fact that the crane was going over the limit and that the weather was unacceptable to continue the lift. And yet, she continued. Yes, she may have been advised that it wasn't safe, but still, she is a manager. She could have said no. The neglect shown by the parents in Commonwealth versus Kellum met the legal definition of malice. The reckless disregard for the well-being of others in Commonwealth versus Schofield also meets the legal definition of malice. In Commonwealth versus Zilius, evidence has been presented that meets the legal definition of malice. The Commonwealth has presented several documents, reports, and testimonies that demonstrate unequivocally that Tatum Zilius is legally responsible for the 2 deaths on Franklin's Trench construction site. I implore you, the jury, to find Zilius guilty of the charges brought against him. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Now it will be time for the jury to